Welcome to Kev Talks, Real World Global Logistics. I'm Kevin Parkerson.
And I'm Kevin Higgins. Together we bring you over 60 years in combined experience in global logistics.
In each episode, we'll dive into the latest industry trends, share practical tips, celebrate wins, and share stories from the logistics front lines, all while helping businesses optimize their logistics operations. Today on Kev Talks Real World Global Logistics, we're honored to welcome Captain Ashok Pandey, a true leader at the intersection of maritime operations, polar research, and global logistics education. Dr. Pandey brings nearly 4 decades of unique experience at sea and ashore, having served as a shipmaster, ice navigator, researcher, and educator. Within 24 years of seagoing experience, including 9 years as a ship captain on ice-class Cape-size vessels, can't wait, and PhD in Arctic shipping from Memorial University of Newfoundland, Dr. Pandey is one of the world's foremost experts in navigating the challenges of polar environments.
Currently an associate professor of international maritime business at Massachusetts Maritime Academy, he's a published author, a U.S. patent holder, and an active contributor to critical industry research, including recent NOAA-supported project on the impacts of marine traffic on indigenous communities in Alaska. From the Arctic seas to the classroom, Dr. Pandey's passion for advancing safe, sustainable maritime operations is evident, and we're excited to learn from his insights today. Captain Pandey, welcome to Kev Talks.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Kevin. It's a pleasure and an honor, for me to speak to you on this day.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for joining us. I'm anxious to dive in.
We're back in class, Kevin.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? We think we teach every day, but you're going to teach us today. So with that, this is really as part of our celebration of National Maritime Day. And what better to have someone in the maritime curriculum, a professor. So tell us a little bit about your work. We gave your intro and phenomenal background, and I'm sure we'll get into a lot of that. But tell us a little bit about your work at the Massachusetts Maritime Academy, and more specifically, share with our audience the difference in traditional logistics supply chain programs and what's offered at the Massachusetts Maritime Academy.
Great question.
That's a great question, Kevin. So I would start with the fact that all my time that I spent at sea, and that was about 20 years in total. Basically, I wanted to get back from the ships, which I did around 2007 or 8. Get back into the shore life, get and basically contribute to the society as such with the knowledge that I had gained basically from what happens on the oceans. The story from the oceans is hardly ever told. And this was something that I really wanted to come and really let the young men and women, who basically would basically replace our generation to learn more about, the ships that are actually invisible entities who do all the logistics and the hard work. Sailing 24/7, 365 days a year, COVID or no COVID. We still didn't have a supply chain disruption because ships were stopping. We had supply chain disruptions because people were sick, not because ships were stopping in mid-ocean. So all that knowledge that I had gained, I simply wanted to tell that story, coming back ashore And in order to do that, obviously, getting back from the ships and on the shore, you needed to have some qualification on the way that you have mentioned. And so I had a fascination for ice navigation and the Arctic and everything that happens in high latitude. One of the reasons for that fascination was that I didn't have much of a competition in that part of the world. Nobody wanted to really go and do that kind of a stuff, if you call it tough. Getting across the Atlantic in the winter time, especially the North Atlantic, and then meeting ice on one end, and let's say the weather in the North Sea and Europe on another, was a challenge by itself, and I simply enjoyed it. And in that process, I learned a lot. And of course, what you haven't mentioned, and I haven't written as much, was the fact that I have been a researcher, even my time on the ships. And so, as a chief officer, and all my time as a captain, I actually participated in at least three major research projects of global importance to the maritime world. And of course, if a researcher or a university finds a ship captain who is ready to risk and basically do all this research so that some data could come out, whether it was ballast water management or whether it was something to do with stresses on a ship, or even what is the best paint that should be applied to a ballast water tank. We definitely need some research before we make a product. And so all of those things, I have been facilitating and participating with academia, much even before I came into academia myself. And all of this resulted in things like getting more knowledge and getting some more education that would help me get into academia myself. And here I am, after all that research and everything else that I have done. Currently, I'm teaching here at Massachusetts Maritime Academy. I teach international maritime business. I started, polar shipping, basically a course in polar shipping economics that I teach here at Mass Maritime Academy. And of course, there are several other courses that I do, but basically all in maritime.
I think that's fascinating. It's one of the things, like with all of the, the growth in the supply chain business colleges, right, where they're teaching more supply chain. I don't think we teach enough or talk enough about the ships, right? The actual container vessels, the bulk vessels, the auto vessels, all the different types of vessels. I don't think there's a great appreciation for that. Honestly, it's one of the things that fascinates me. I've got ship models at my house.
Fascinates us, Higgins, but it doesn't everybody else, right? In many cases, we're going to totally geek out because I think you're right.
Yeah.
This is really interesting to me to be able to talk to the captain. And what I just learned is, I'm not so sure I understood, that, or maybe it's not common, for a captain to be doing the research or involved in the research aspect of it. I go back to pop culture and I think of a captain as a captain, and not necessarily the research piece of it. So that's fascinating to me.
Exactly. I think you have hit the nail right on the head. And I was very surprised myself when I, as a young chief officer, wanted to really do an MBA back then. And when I actually gave the example of the fact that I was actually on a ship and I really wanted to come back ashore and do something like that, people were really surprised because they felt that what does a guy on a ship do? You don't see a ship. A ship is an invisible entity. We don't even think, how are we getting the goods to a Walmart? Until
we think about it now,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Yes, until we face the shortage. on our shelves. And then we say, hey, what's going on? Why is there a shortage? And then someone says that, well, you know what? Some there is a port strike, probably, and the ships haven't arrived. So as you rightly said, I mean, this maritime logistics and supply chain is one of the least understood, part of the overall supply chain. And of course, I wonder why, because shipping is an industry that carries 90% of
Yep.
everything. And if you look around your room and see what is the source of almost each and everything, the clothes we are wearing, the table we are working on, the equipment that we are using, where is it all coming
Yep.
from? And you may find that some of these things are coming from very far distant shores. And would you believe, to get that from that distance is actually cheaper than producing closer to our
Yep.
home. And that's the magnificent part about the global supply chain and logistics. We live in a globalized world. We live in an interdependent and highly interlinked and interconnected world, where logistics is a very complicated process to unravel and understand. And surely, the role of a ship in getting all these goods around the world. I mean, we have close to 193 countries around the world, and out of those, close to 154 at last count have a coastal access or have a river. Which is of course given to us naturally. It would make sense to work with a transport mechanism that happens to be the oldest in the world and also happens to be the most carbon efficient of all transport modes.
Now, there's an
Those are the
interesting fact.
those are the ships. Somewhere in the last 200 years, we simply forgot about the ships when we discovered land transport, when we discovered the roads, the automobiles, and the planes. And we simply ignored probably our canals, our rivers, and the fact that the oceans, I mean, I would term the oceans as the common heritage of mankind. Okay.
Very
And
well
it
said.
is
Yeah.
incumbent upon all of us, to preserve and protect these oceans for
I
generations. In
love
fact,
that.
someone said, that God must have been a ship owner to actually, have close to 77% of water and just about 1/4 land, where more than 7.5 to 8 billion
Yep.
people actually live.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the number of people who actually sail the around 100,000 plus ships that we have in the world today is not more than 2 million. Okay.
Hmm.
So 2 million people, 12 billion tons of cargo as of 2023 is what maritime logistics does. Right. So how could we not get up and take notice of this important branch of
Yep.
logistics? Of course, I mean, it would be foolhardy to ignore hinterland logistics and what is happening ashore. But at the end of the day, in a world where production systems are so far removed, I mean, we are getting goods from all over the world, not because we can't produce them. We can definitely produce almost anything and everything. But we feel the best way, the most economic way to get these goods is from people who do these things best
Mhm.
at the right cost,
Mhm.
and try and give them something that we do better than them.
This is great. This Higgins, we are in class. This is like
100%.
our episode with our friend Jason Miller.
Yeah.
We were in class with him.
Yeah.
I'm already learning so much. But I'm gonna say MMA for Massachusetts Maritime Academy going forward, just because Higgins is gonna make fun of me
Yeah.
for saying Massachusetts. So, but how has MMA adapted? You mentioned a little bit of it, but how has MMA adapted its curriculum in response to today global supply chain disruptions, decarbonization and sustainability initiatives, AI and automation and all the technology? How is the curriculum responding to all of that?
Right. So you spoke about decarbonization. You spoke about global supply chain and logistics. So I can tell you here that we have a master's program as well, where I am teaching global supply chain and logistics, and this is an online program in the at MMA that actually I'm responsible for.
Higgins should
And
sign up for
so
that. Can Higgins sign
I,
up for that
I
class and
need
take
all the
that?
classes.
Yeah, why not?
Right.
In fact, I'm starting the module, the global supply chain module, just in about 2 weeks' time. It's a 17-month course,
Wow.
Oh,
and of course, you go through 10 modules and you come out with a Master of Science in Maritime
Wow.
Business. So if anyone is interested, obviously, MMA is the place. So getting back to your question, Kevin, how has MMA adapted to its
yeah.
curriculum? So, I would basically point out the difference that we make here in at MMA. For instance, we have something called the Maritime Center for Responsible Energy (MCRE), which we established to deliver training to the renewable energy industry. We develop robust collaborative partnerships with renewable energy stakeholders and coordinate all of the Academy's renewable energy efforts. Now, why have we done this? So looking at the new economy, we are talking about decarbonization and so on. We are heavily invested in offshore wind energy. And in fact, I also run an online experiential learning for my students, which is basically I call a nearshore experiential learning, where I don't take students abroad like the foreign experiential learnings, which is another aspect. But for the offshore wind industry that I'm running each summer, I did it in summer of 24 and I will do it in summer of 25. We are working with the offshore wind industry here in New England, where we are basically networking and meeting the stakeholders in the offshore wind industry, get to our students, let our students know about the industry, simply because the offshore wind industry has a huge potential, and we require well educated and well rounded graduates, such as the ones we produce here at Mass Maritime, and we require a lot of them in the next 10 years if the nation has to really achieve the goals, as they say, 30 gigawatts by 2030, and so on and so forth. And so there is a lot happening here, and Mass Maritime is actually at the forefront of this offshore wind energy training, as it were. In fact, the MMA has actually been imparting training in cooperation with a global stakeholder called Rely on New Tech, that offers globally recognized global wind organization basic safety training at our Buzzards Bay campus. And so, I also run the offshore the online course here, and that basically is making our students look at this industry and try and satisfy the demands that the industry has, looking for young men and women to join the force. So one of the decarbonization goals of addressing the offshore wind industry is definitely on the cards. There are several other initiatives that of course our department, the International Maritime Business Department, we have several majors here. In fact, there are 7 majors, and plus, of course, we have the deckies and the engineers going aboard ships and so on. So the International Maritime Business, for instance, we also are running some consultancy courses or consultancy programs where the students act as consultants to the industry to find solutions to problems that the industry is actually having. So one of the solutions, or one of the projects that I had in the last 2 or 3 years, was working to calculate the greenhouse gas emission from a container
Hmm.
terminal. So a container terminal in Panama
Mhm.
is basically coming online with a project asking our students to do a greenhouse gas basic impact calculation that will actually let the container terminal prepare in the future as to how to decarbonize their container terminal and eventually go to a zero carbon future by 2050, as IMO has mandated. So our department, the IMB department, has been doing a couple of these kind of initiatives with our students and the industry to figure out these solutions. I'm sure there are other departments at Mass Maritime who are doing similar things.
Yeah. What a great, curriculum, for those students, and the experience and all the things that you're just talking about. I can't imagine, the type of experiences that they're getting and
No
preparing
kidding.
them for their careers and for the industry.
Yeah.
But also along with that, what type of soft skills, communication, critical thinking, leadership are incorporated into that in the curriculum as well?
So a whole lot. Basically, so this is a regimented institution, and basically some of the things like leadership, teamwork, um, I would say adaptability, communication, and some of these things. I mean, we are, the students are learning as part of a regimented life, and so we are basically thinking about, a people first mindset, as they say.
Hmm.
The the maritime world is getting heavily digitalized. Okay. So I basically look at the 2 Ds. We spoke about the decarbonization, which is one
Yep.
D. The second is the big digitalization push that is going on around the world. To address the digital divide, as it were, we have been doing a lot. In fact, it began around COVID times, when we started imparting online classes for the entire year, for the entire 2020 half year and 2021 full year, if I remember correctly. We managed our classes completely online, where we changed the curriculum in such a way that almost each and everything, except some of the practical classes, could actually be delivered
Hmm.
online. So with some of those things, although initially people didn't like it because obviously everybody had to train to something new and so on and so
Right.
forth. But what we found in 2021, having run this for almost 6 to 9 months, was people really liked, the young students really liked the way the online classes were being delivered. People were all locked in their homes during COVID, as you remember, and we ran it so successfully that there was not a single instance where a student was not able to graduate simply because there were COVID times and he or she wasn't able to attend a class. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that has been one push that we found is really worthwhile. And since that time, what we started back then, at least some of us have realized the importance of how new technology can basically do wonders by doing remote classes if required for people who are not able to travel. Even today, there is a lot of digital education in the physical classroom setting. Especially with respect to assignments and assessments that we deliver, and COVID actually taught us a lot. And some of the best practices that we found from the online education, we continue it forward. Um, the second thing that we do with respect to what you asked was the fact that we, apart from the classroom education, we strongly believe in the learn, do, learn philosophy, where there is a practical hands-on approach to almost each and everything that a student is studying in the classroom. We strongly believe that reading books in the classroom is just one component, but the student must go out in the world and basically see as to how the rest of the world is doing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So for us, the world is an oyster. Okay. And so what we do is that each year, summer and winter, we are basically, during the breaks, we are basically taking a bunch of students to foreign destinations. I have just returned from the United Arab Emirates during the winter break. I took the students to Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Last year, I had taken the students to Germany and the Netherlands, and my colleagues are taking students to Japan, Thailand, South Africa, and of course, there are so many destinations. So what happens after that? So these students, a bunch of, let's say, 15 or 20 students, we go there, spend about 3 weeks with the students, and the students visit some of the top industries and meet the people who matter to them in future. Okay. In other words, we are providing our students a global passport to success. Staying here in Cape Cod, as a campus, we are basically fanning out around the world. And in the 4 years that a student, an undergrad student, spends with us, he or she becomes really very well informed, because we feel that maritime logistics or maritime business is not only concentrated to a certain region, but maritime business goes wherever the water flows, and the water flows all over the planet. Wherever the ship goes. Okay. And we try to reach out, to all parts of the world with our students. And actually, I would invite you on campus, when you have the time, to come and talk to our students and how well informed they are with all the initiatives that we do.
Yeah, that would be great. Do you guys partner? You guys partner up with any like large multinational companies to introduce your students to their supply chains or anything else like that?
Yes. So in terms of partnerships, that's a great question. In terms of partnerships, talking about large companies in maritime. So Maersk Line is a major shipping line that is one of the top container shipping lines in the world, at the forefront of decarbonization and digitalization.
Exactly.
Okay. So during my time in Europe, I make sure that I'm taking them to the Maersk headquarters, in Europe, been to the Netherlands, took them around to some of the top container terminals that are fully automated, and showed the students that we may not have that in the US at this point in time, but this is where the future lies. Okay. And so Maersk is just an example. During my time in Dubai, I had taken them to one of the top ship brokers in the world, Clarksons, for instance, and let them see as to how does it feel to be at Clarksons. What do they do in their offices that we actually teach in the classroom, but it is difficult for them to really transport them physically into a Clarksons office and see Clarkson presenting to my students as to what they do in their
Yeah.
business. There are several examples where we are actually collaborating and partnering with some of the top in the world, some of the best in the world, and yeah, we are trying to get them the best we can, um, uh, in the current
I love
context.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love. Yeah. Yeah. And you talked about the future. That gets me to know, what excites you about the future, in maritime logistics.
I think the future is really very exciting, and that's the reason why I came to education. Um, when we look at the future, and let me go back to the 22nd of May. When was that? When the ship actually sailed, right? Was it which date was it? 22nd of May, 1819, or thereabouts,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So when I looked at the voyage of that ship, I said, that was the first time a steam engine was employed to to sail a ship from the U.S. To the United Kingdom. The ship made a voyage in 29
Mm-hmm.
days. Okay, some 29 days and 4 hours. I think, if I'm correct historically. Um, when you look at the technology, that at that point in time, we used to rely on wind power, right? And although we had a steam engine, yeah, when I go to a bit of the historical context of the voyage of the Savannah that we are talking about, um, the Savannah, it seems, sailed almost 80% on wind power and just about 20% on the new
Mm-hmm.
technology, steam power that came about. Fast forward to the current scenario. We are talking offshore wind. We are talking renewable energy. We are talking solar. We are talking tidal power. We are looking at harnessing the power of nature and the power of the ocean, with the current technical advancements that we have had in the last 200 to 300 years. Okay, we are definitely thinking of taking fossil fuel out of our lives. We are looking at alternative energy. We are trying to find the wonder fuel that may not. Evolve carbon at
Right.
all, although it is difficult, it is expensive. The shipping industry that emits just about 3% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. We are just 3% of the global greenhouse gas emissions, but we want to go from 3 to
Right.
0. We feel that we emit a bit too much. Okay, so if we have taken up that kind of a cause, the maritime industry, okay, we will definitely need education, and a lot of education, for our students to be the next generation who understand the importance of how can we live in a better, cleaner
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
Okay, and so uh, you know the interdependence, the interlinking, the supply chains, and everything else that we talk about, if we have to really understand the intricacies of all this and do it in a way that is affordable to all, we definitely need a lot more educated people coming in this profession. Unfortunately, if you look at the history, we didn't have very many educated people who would come in here, because it was mostly a very different way that ships and ports used to work in
Right.
yesteryears. Not
Yeah.
anymore. So all of this basically made me think that I must go and really make all efforts to educate the next generation, so that we get the right people
Yeah.
to basically do all of this stuff that the industry is looking for. I mean, we are looking at so much of automation, we are looking at so much of digitalization, and if we don't have education to really, prop this up, I think we will be left far behind.
All right.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I definitely would like to do.
Well, I
Yeah, you mentioned
commend you on doing that.
Yeah, and you mentioned the next generation, and I definitely you heavily influence, and have a dramatic impact on the next generation. But what advice, and you likely are giving advice all the time, whether you know it or not, but what advice, our listeners are wanting to know, what advice do you have for young people considering a career in the maritime industry?
So I would think, that first of all, the advice that so I would say, that there is, for each and every individual, all of us want to succeed, but the template of how to succeed may be different for different individuals. There is definitely no replacement for hard work and honesty. If you are actually doing your job honestly, and if you're really not looking into shortcuts, basically to achieve success, probably that would be one way to do it. Now, when I actually see the so why should it be the ocean economy? Because it has been a bit of a challenge for students. So the young student of today has got many choices. I mean, he or she can get into pharmaceuticals, can get into automation, can get into automobiles, can get into engineering, can get into many different areas. Probably we in our times we didn't have as many choices, and these choices will expand further. But looking at the ocean economy, I'll say this here. If the ocean economy was a country, if the ocean was actually a country, by 2030, the ocean economy is predicted to produce a GDP worth $3 trillion.
Wow.
Okay,
Wow.
That's
which
in 5
means
years. Yeah.
which means that if the ocean economy was a country, we will probably the top 5 in the world. Okay. Now, with education and with the kind of students I have, I would like the next generation to look at this economy and actually preserve it for the coming generations. Simply because this economy has so much more to offer. We are talking about offshore wind. We are talking about harnessing, from the waves, and there are so many things. I mean, for me, I think that the maritime economy is something that will always remain in this world as long as the oceans do not dry up. If the oceans do not dry up, then we will still have these countries. The population will expand at a certain rate, as it is doing at this point in time, and the interdependence and the global connectivity is something that's a model of success. In order to really make this happen and do it even better with new technology and the decarbonization, the big challenge that we have in front of us, I definitely feel that the younger generation should be coming to the maritime business side of things, because there is a lot of stuff to do out here.
Yeah.
So that is something that I tell my young students and try to impress upon them, because we need the best minds in the world to basically make this happen.
Yeah.
I agree
Well,
100%.
yeah, this has been great. This has been a real treat. The MMA is really, I'm sure pleased to have you leading the students, and we appreciate you coming on and just sharing with us your background, your history, and what's going on at MMA. So as we wrap up this special National Maritime Day edition of Kev Talks, Real World Global Logistics, I want to once again say thank you to Captain and Dr. Ashok Pandey for joining us and sharing his incredible journey from commanding vessels in icy waters to shaping the future of maritime education and research. Today's conversation reminds us all of the vital role that mariners play, not just in moving goods across the globe, but advancing innovation, sustainability, and safety on the seas. It's leaders like Dr. Pandey who inspire the next generation and ensure that the spirit of exploration, resilience, and service continues to thrive. To everyone listening, whether you work on the water, support maritime operations, or simply appreciate the critical role shipping plays in our daily lives, thank you for celebrating National Maritime Day with us. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and keep the global supply chain moving. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Captain Pandey.
Thank you, Mr. Marcus, for having me.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Kev Talks, Real World Global Logistics. If today's discussion inspired you, don't forget to follow, subscribe, rate, and share our podcast.
Remember, every great journey in logistics starts with a single step forward. Let's continue working together to transform the industry.